Skilled Carer is here to provide more than just care. We support families, participants, support workers, care teams, and the community to understand disability, reduce stigma, grow capacity, promote happiness, and achieve dreams. I started Skilled Carer to provide sustainable growth, trust, integrity, and education to the industry. We do this by employing reliable and responsible support workers with high integrity and moral fibre. We educate and support them within the industry, and we liaise with families to find sustainable solutions to their lives and facilitate their needs. Our goal is to enable each person we support to live the life they choose. We facilitate our clients' goals, which may be to rejoin the workforce, get and hold a job or career, master everyday tasks, gain ownership and independence, or access community services, as well as anything else they need and are searching for. We provide education through the zones of regulation to help the individual learn and understand their emotions, recognise others, and implement strategies to help them regulate their emotions and reduce behaviours. We create relationships with everything that we do in our life through the feelings that it gives us. For me, I've created a relationship with the gym that I have to go every day because that's just what I do. It's part of my identity. And sometimes it seems probably unhealthy to outsiders. Um, and people would definitely see it as a negative. I already know that I'll be working out Christmas Day, Christmas morning, and a lot of people with kids will probably think that I'm insane when they hear that. But it's such an entrenched mindset that I've created when I must do it, or I don't feel right. Like I feel like I'm letting myself down if I don't, and I know I won't be able to relax, and it will genuinely affect my mood. There's more prevalence um, of anxiety um, and more teenagers in their rooms where their room is their fun area where they play video games. It's their kitchen where they eat food. It's their relaxation space where they watch movies or listen to music. It's their creative space where they may write or create things with technology or with pen on paper or in their mind, or if they do it, do their homework, and it's their safe space. They have comfort there. COVID normalized that, and for some who already maybe had some associations there, it has now entrenched that. It's created an organic ecosystem within a person's life that everything they know and everything they're familiar with exists there. For us fuddy duddies, we don't know what that feels like. We never had much technology growing up. I remember being in my room listening to Michael Jackson or some more embarrassing CD titles like Aqua and Backstreet Boys and drawing away for hours. But then you got bored and you went outside, or I had brothers to annoy or cause mischief with. Technology and social media, games, online worlds, Netflix, and binging all this stuff wasn't around. So it's not fair for us to sit back and say, go ride your bike in the street like I did, because it's a different world now. And we have a responsibility to learn about these things and provide some education and guidance, lead by example, and set healthy boundaries. It's not fair for me to tell a young person to put their phone away, but then get mine out. Kids are learning, they make mistakes. I make mistakes every day. It's our job to guide them and teach them and allow them to have ownership over the choices they make and why. Because one day when they are, out on their own, they're going to have to make these choices for themselves. Our central nervous system and its connection between our brain and our body is responsible for our emotions and states of mind. They drive us and influence how we behave and how we interpret our surroundings and our emotions. Emotions are a type of internal state. They pass, they are temporary, they control behavior. It's useful to view emotions as a state. I see it as an iceberg. The emotion is the bulk of the iceberg that you can't see. The feeling part is the tip that's floating above the surface of your consciousness. It's easier to understand emotions rather than feelings of how each of us experience these emotions, because we do experience emotions completely differently, and completely differently from day to day and from person to person. Feelings have to be interpreted. And so, because humans are the only creatures that speak and can explain how they feel, we haven't been able to complete animal studies on feelings, but we have been able to study emotions in animals. So, that's the foundation of scientific based research. Emotions tend to outlast our reactions. The way they are influenced by our central nervous system is, if you walk past a snake, your immediate reaction is to be startled. You probably go into fight, flight, or freeze. But then those emotions, um, that's the central nervous system becoming alert. But then those emotions tend to outlast the initial reaction. You're more likely to be alert and jumpy at things that come up along the way for the rest of your bushwalk, and you're going to remain hyper vigilant. We have emotion states and we have motivational states. A motivation state is, I'm hungry, I need to find food. I'm thirsty, I need to drink water. Once you satisfy that urge or that need, that feeling no longer exists. I've eaten now, so I'm no longer hungry. It goes away. Straight away, there is an emotion state. You might have a fight or an argument with someone, and those emotions within you, they don't dissipate when the fight finishes, or the argument finishes. You may feel heightened or angry, annoyed, and be experiencing, an elevated heart rate for an extended period of time. And we all respond really differently and individually to those emotions. There are strategies and tools that you can use to lower your state of emotion to get you back into a more comfortable and regulated zone quicker, because experiencing these emotions and states for a longer period of time has a physical demand on the body and can be really exhausting if you're someone who does feel anxious when they're around other people. Now, that actually is a lot of us. And what do we do as adults in a social situation where we might feel self conscious or uncomfortable? Um, we What's a really common habit that we've adopted? We drink alcohol. That gives us this inflated sense of self in our confidence, and it hides and pushes away these uncomfortable emotions. That's our initial response. But for someone who is experiencing even heightened levels of these anxieties, that's going to be extremely exhausting to be in a socially uncomfortable position for extended periods of time. How are they expected to learn? If you're talking about a school environment, for example, it's impossible to have all their energy and effort and blood flow going into determining safety and trying to regulate and trying to determine their level of comfortability. And this is where having a support worker or a clinician who understands this will put rapport first and foremost in a relationship, create a bond and a trust, lower their emotions within a person, lower the feelings, reduce the emotions before attempting to grow capacity or to venture out into the community, um, and into these positions where those anxious feelings are going to surface, and they're going to be much more comfortable and feel at ease with someone they trust, and with a relationship that they know they feel safe. Um, the really important first steps to be able to create a successful relationship and successful outcomes for a participant. These emotions exhibit a physical response. When heightened due to anxiety, stress hormones are activated, heart rate increases, you start to sweat, certain brain areas become more active, our muscles are tense, and we carry that with us. Who else enjoyed 40-40 and hide and seek as a kid? I loved it. Not so much as an adult. In schools in the last few years, we've been required to take children's phones, secure them, make sure they don't have them. And rules are implemented throughout the school about taking kids' phones off them if they're using it in class, if they've got it in the yard, or even if it's sighted. Yeah, not as much fun hide and seek as an adult when you've got curriculum to get through and a class watching you play cat and mouse. Really, really difficult to manage situations. Um, yeah, you can come at this from a bunch of different angles, and schools have policy and procedures in place, which might be that if a phone is seen, step one, you take it away straight away, goes to the office, and then there's a consequence for that. If it happens again, it's the same process, but the second consequence might be a more severe consequence. The act of physically taking someone's belongings is super hard, and kids might have different rules and different leniencies to the individual because of personal management plans. Now, I agree that fairness isn't about giving everyone the same thing; it's giving each person what they need, and that comes with some difficulties and some tough conversations. The approach I took was to spend significant time and energy educating the individual and the class about the associations created with the phone, the negative effects, the dopamine response, the biochemistry and behind how the brain works, addiction, misconceptions about social media, and all the eye rolling topics that they loved hearing about. They just really enjoyed it. Um, I could have just, said, "These are the rules, champion, do as I say, bad luck, don't care, they're the rules." But to me, that's not a long-term strategy, and it doesn't provide the individual any growth or any opportunities. So I gave them the information and I put it back on them. It's up to you to handle this situation. I allowed some take-up time. I gave them, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, maybe a day, um, to think about the effects that it was having on them, their addiction to their phone. And sometimes we give kids less credit than what's due. They can be extremely thoughtful, responsible, and mature when they're given the opportunity to do so and make their own choices. Self control can only last so long. And, when you've got that thing in your pocket burning a hole in it, it's only a matter of time before you just have a mental lapse and you have to touch it, you have to get your hands on it. And, we've created this problem in a child's life, given them total autonomy um, over to a point that they have no power. Um, but they have trouble understanding the repercussions, the consequences, and the choices that and behaviors that brings down the track. No one likes being told what to do. Think about a time when your boss told you to do something. I mean, it helps and it makes you feel that there's a reward at the end of it. And after all, you're getting paid. So, yeah, I'll do that task I don't agree with. And I need the money at the end of the day. I need to pay the bills and support my family. But it doesn't make you feel very trusted or give you much initiative to make the right choice. Um, and that's the long term sustainable success route. What good is it to me if I just take the phone every time I see it? What are the other kids going to do with their phone? They've seen me take one. Well, they're going to hide it more. They're going to be more deceitful about it. But they're not learning anything. They're not taking anything away from it. They're just constantly battling with self restraint within their own head and wanting to touch it, wanting to see who's messaged them on Snapchat, wanting to check their Clash of Clans towers, wanting to get that little dopamine serotonin hit that they crave because of the addiction. Kids started bringing dummy phones and handing them over and keeping their actual phone, hiding it wherever, and putting it in their locker or on their person. And as a teacher, I have absolutely no control over that. That's not a battle I want to fight. I'm not going to, you know, get the metal detector out on a person and check their phone. They're in control of their decisions. As much as the legislation says I have control, I have no control over what happens in that situation. Am I really going to pick this battle when I have so much to do in the classroom, and I've got other kids to monitor, I've got curriculum to get through, and I've got other kids that deserve my attention um, and time. And am I really going to damage this relationship with a particular student based on an ego within myself about having this fight? While the other kids, sit back and watch how I act, and we know kids learn more from what they see than what they hear. And I do have control in enabling the individual to make their choice and let them have ownership over their own life. And that's why I became a teacher, not to be a disciplinarian and to have arguments. So the question is, how do we break down these barriers? Well, you could take some information away from this and put it to the individual. You could start with providing the ownership to the individual. Maybe you have the ability to do that as a caregiver, but maybe you don't. So you want to use a trusted person within that person's life. It might be a coach, it might be a friend, an uncle, a brother, a sister, a friend, if they're mature enough, or it could be a support worker. And use that person to have these open conversations about how they feel about this information after providing them with some of the information, some of the things that I've mentioned. You could even listen to this together. Then you could ask the person, what are some feelings you would like to change? How can you do this? Ask them how can you do it? Let them come up with the answers. Yes, we're going to guide them. You're going to guide them if they get stuck, and you can offer potential ideas, but they need to come up with, or at least think they came up with the idea themselves. That's going to give them the ownership. So you want to feel less anxious and depressed, for example. Okay, cool. Well, what is it about this environment at home that makes you feel anxious? Talk about the associations that have been created, or listen to the first half of this, and then come up with some solutions by asking them questions. So, by living in your room and playing video games, you're not getting what your body needs in terms of sleep. And by eating nuggets and fried stuff every day, you aren't getting the nutrition your brain needs to be able to feel healthy and energetic and positive. What can you do? How are you going to enable you to be happy? Ask these questions. Leave a lot of time for them to answer and don't overwhelm them. Whatever they say, agree with it. Validate what they're saying. It's really important, particularly when someone's feeling vulnerable and they're going to feel very self conscious. You have to validate what they're saying. Um, they have to feel like you're listening to them. If they say something and the first thing you say is, "Yeah, well," or "but," they tune out. That's it. They're not going to open up again. You've lost an opportunity. It takes a lot of guts to be able to talk about something that's already going to be making them feel uncomfortable. Talking about feelings and emotions is an uncomfortable feeling. They won't like sitting with it. Um, but understand it's a huge positive that they are taking the ownership by talking about it, whatever it is they say. And um, they might say, "I play with my phone too much." They might not give you much to work with at all, but take what they give you, um, and that's an in. That's an in for you. Take it. Okay, so you're saying you're on your phone a lot and you'd like to be on it less? Let them agree. Ask them if they've got any ideas. How can we fix that? They might not have anything. They might stumble and fumble. What about a charging station in the kitchen when you want to go to sleep? You can place it there and you can know it's safe and your mind can relax and you can sleep without being distracted. Look, you might hear this and think, hang on a minute, like, I already have those rules in my house. Um, but if it's a rule, the individual isn't taking ownership over it, most likely. They're just adhering to your rules. And look, it's a fantastic thing that you do have rules, don't get me wrong. Um, and it's fantastic that they're obliging to it. But eventually, whether you know it or not, there'll be a pushback. And that's when you do have to be malleable. And that's when it's going to become hard. You have to allow the individual to make mistakes so they can make their own choices and own their behavior. Um, as well as the consequences. We want to protect them and save them from themselves, but sometimes that can lead to worse behaviors down the track or a lack of responsibility, acting shady. They might go and sneak the phone back. They might give you a dummy phone. They go out and get another phone or doing sneakily things that they shouldn't be doing. And look, this is just all commentary on some practical scenarios. I'm not here saying this is how you parent or coach or support an individual, but it's one way that I know has proven to be successful from my experience. And it's something to think about if you are having troubles. Um, Thinking outside of what our immediate response is and our immediate urges can give you some alternatives. Let me know if you do have this conversation with another and what your thoughts are. I'd love to share some real life anonymous examples of success or complications and continue this conversation. Thanks again for taking the time to listen. Stay tuned for further episodes released weekly. If you want to get in touch with me or a support worker from Skilled Carer, please contact us at skilledcarer@gmail.com. Check the website, www.skilledcarer.com, or leave a voice note here. We're always keen on chatting with people about opportunities and learning how we can support you and your family to make your life easier.